PLC Network here with another unboxing, this time coming from a company called WEMAX. And WEMAX is another name we haven't really discussed here before. It is the WEMAX Nova Ultra Short Throw 4K Laser Projector. 4K with HDR support, of course, just like any other 4K projector should be anymore these days. But yeah, 4K HDR and laser, and it is good for up to 150 inches of viewing space, or, well, size of screen. Specifically, it's good for anything between 80 and 150 inches, so you can just pretty much scale it to whatever fits the given room that you're placing this into. So it could be 80 inches, 100 inches, 120 inches, 150 inches, whatever the case may be. This will fill the space between 80 and 150 inches, but no more than 150 inches. There are some limitations with some of the ultra short throw projectors because they have to be so close to the screen and not projected from clear across the room. Of course, there's a benefit there because you don't have to project it clear across the room. But with the ceiling mounted projectors, you can, put it anywhere you want, allowing you to get any size image you want out of that projector. Where ultra short throw projectors are meant for a small footprint and an easy installation, and it's right up next to the screen. And then you have the lumens, 2100 lumens, which gives you a pretty decent amount of brightness, which is competitive to a lot of the home cinema projectors that are out there. They do get brighter than that, and they go upwards of 2800 or more in some cases, but the average sticks within the 2000 range for a good, dependable projector, which could be just as viewable, not really just as, but decently viewable with the lights on as it is with the lights off. Of course, you're going to get much better brightness, or at least detail. You'll notice the brightness better if you take the lights off in a perfectly dark room. It's going to look fantastic with the lights on. You are going to need an ambient light rejecting screen, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you do plan on using this with the lights on for any given reason, let it be for an office or something to display graphics on the wall, then you are going to want an ambient light rejecting screen to get the most out of this projector with. You have an 8-point keystone correction, which is a good thing, because typically some of the more affordable projectors, you get 4 points of correction. You get your 4 corners, and sometimes that can get a little wonky. The screen might look a little skewed on the screen, and or the image might look a little skewed on your screen, and it's sometimes hard to dial that in unless you're perfectly projecting straight on. With an 8-point keystone adjustment, that makes things a lot easier. It also has built-in speakers. It has 30 watts of built-in speakers and kind of a soundbar style design since it's an ultra short throw. Kind of a benefit of the ultra short throw projectors, it's sitting in front of you instead of above you or behind you. So it allows it to act more of just a front-facing speaker like a soundbar. And in that, it has two 10-watt full-range speakers and two 5-watt tweeters to try to get a lot of sound with. Of course, if you're going to want more theatrical sound in your theater or living room space, then you're going to want a full-out system or a bigger soundbar. We always recommend an AVR with full-range speakers surrounding you because, 5.1 or even Atmos, something like the speakers in here obviously aren't going to compare to something like that. So if you really want that theatrical experience, that's just as good as the projector itself. Obviously, if you're going to spend this much money on video, you're going to want good sound, then go with a 5.1 or 7.1 system, or 1.2, 0.4, whatnot, if you want to go with Atmos with speakers above your head as well. Definitely balance this with good sound to match your image. It also comes with a remote with voice control. It has a built-in microphone. Since the projector itself is running on Android TV 9.0, so you're able to interact with Google Assistant using the remote by saying, hey, open Netflix or YouTube. I shouldn't say Netflix, and it doesn't natively support Netflix just yet, so it might in the future. We don't quite know the answer to that just yet, but it does have some other app support, which we'll get to in a quick second. But you just pull out that remote and say, hey, open Hulu, open YouTube, or search for 4K graphics of cool animals in Europe on YouTube. And it'll pull up YouTube and search for that, which is a big benefit for any smart connected projector or TV, because nobody wants to get off their couch. Apparently that's too many steps, but no, it is a great benefit to be able to pull up that remote and just say whatever you want and get whatever you want on the screen. Of course, it's not perfect, but if you've ever used Google Assistant or Alexa or anything like that in the past, then you know exactly what you're capable of getting out of it. So as for those apps, it doesn't natively support Netflix just yet. They are recommending that you have some kind of an HDMI stick in there, kind of like a Fire TV stick, to be able to get access to Netflix with. So natively, there's probably a licensing thing going on with this projector, which affects a lot of brands actually, except for some of the biggest brands with their nicer projectors. So there is something going on there. Netflix does apparently make it harder than any other app to be able to get licensing going for products like this. But you do get Disney Plus, you get HBO Max, you get Hulu, you get YouTube, you get all of those thousands of apps that are in the Android market just waiting for you to dive into your favorite movies, your TV, video clips of cute kittens running around the screen, whatever floats your boat whenever you're viewing your screen, except for Netflix, unless you have an HDMI stick plugged in. That being said, it also has Chromecast support and Bluetooth, so you can stream to this. And which is also quite common with just about any projector out there or TV that has Android built in. Chromecast is kind of like a default feature. So you could, of course, pull up Netflix on your phone and just simply Chromecast it to the projector and do it that way instead. And then Bluetooth allows you to use this as a Bluetooth speaker, so if you want to stream music from Pandora or anything else, you can do that as well. Then you have ARC support within the HDMI connections of this projector, at least probably one HDMI connection usually, that offers ARC support. It does not offer eARC in this model, but it does offer ARC, so that way you can send signal back to your receiver or anything else that's receiving, a soundbar, receiver, or anything like that, especially if you are using this as your kind of main central hub for playback of video and music content. So obviously there's a lot to talk about with this projector. A lot going on with it, a lot of features. It is a big projector with hopefully a big image. And a few last points to discuss before we open this bad boy up to see what's on the inside or what it looks like. We'll touch on a few things. And one is, what is ultra short throw? Ultra short throw means that it is placed closer to the screen. It literally sits right underneath. This gives you the smallest footprint and easiest install. That's one of the biggest benefits. You don't have to install it on the roof. No mounts to deal with or anything like that. It just simply sits right up to the screen at the bottom, just like your receiver would. In this case, this has a 0.233 to 1 throw ratio, which is about plus or minus around 9 inches from the wall or from the screen. And you don't see any distractions, no light comes back at you or anything. It fires at and up at the screen. So there's nothing coming back at you that can, drive you nuts while you're watching a video. And on top of that, that's where ambient light rejecting screens really come into play, because ambient light rejecting screens, it captures the light that's coming up at the screen this way, not so much from above. So if you have any reflection that's hitting the ceiling, you don't want that to reflect back and into the screen and kind of muddy up the image or anything like that. And if you have any lighting above, and this is where it gets important for daytime or just use with the lights on, if you have lights above shining down, the ambient light rejecting screen is kind of going to cancel out some of that light, which will help prevent any fading of the image. So again, if you're going to use this with the lights on, make sure you get an ambient light rejecting screen. It will work with a regular projection screen just fine. You just will be stuck with pretty much using it with the lights off. And that is what ultra short throw means and the benefits of it. And the second point we wanted to touch on really quick is laser. This is a laser projector. The benefits of that is that laser provides a much cleaner, brighter, and more crisp image than your typical bulbs, because everything's more finely tuned, so you have better edges, just precision overall with text and edges or anything like that should come out a lot clearer. You should have better black levels than a normal projector. You should have better brightness, or at least the capabilities of a higher brightness due to just the technology behind the laser. Now, every projector is different. Again, this is up to 2100 lumens. It can go higher with other models that are out there in the market, but this one specifically is 2100 lumens. But laser does have a lot of potential, which is pretty exciting. And then, of course, you have lamp life as well. With a laser projector, you typically get about somewhere around 25,000 lamp hours, or just usage hours. In other words, you'll probably experience some kind of other hardware failure somewhere else inside this projector before you ever have any issues with the lamp itself. So no replacing bulbs or anything like that. It's all in one, built in, no replacements needed. So that's ultra short throw and laser and the benefits and of both, and the reason why it's exciting to move into that direction with projection. So that leaves us with the MSRP. $2,700, or specifically $2,699. That is the MSRP of this projector. So it definitely doesn't fit the pockets of most consumers. but some. Anybody who is an enthusiast that's looking to get the best out of the theater, this is the kind of option you're going to be looking for. At least it's the kind of price you'll probably be spending. Anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 typically is the average expense of a good projector for a good home theater or living room setup. So you do have to expect to spend some money if you really want something that you can sit down in front of and go, this is mine. I get to watch this every day. So that being said, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to open this up. We're going to see what it looks like, see what it comes with. And then in a moment, we're going to take this to one of our demo rooms and we're going to hook it up and we're going to show you what it looks like when it's actually in use. So the first thing you're presented with is this awesome WEMAX little envelope here. This is kind of like a traditional thing that you get on anything these days that you spend a lot of money on. It kind of gives you that grand luxury kind of feel. You get this private little card or envelope that has typically some documentation information where they're going to put the manual, usually, or warranty information. And it just makes you feel a little bit more special when you're opening up the box. You do have just a cleaning cloth here for wiping down the lens with. And then you have, as I said, the user manual, which just kind of walks you through everything and how to set everything up and what all the buttons are for. Goes through some of the features, you know, the ALPD for the projection, you have HDMI with ARC, you have Bluetooth, Dolby Audio, and DTS HD. And it tells you, it kind of goes through some of the methods of how you would install this in front of the screen to get your ideal image with. And you have nice, thick, durable foam to protect that expensive projector with. Now we have the projector. I'll kind of tip this up. We have the projector here with some of the accessories down below, and we'll start with the accessories. You have 1/2 of the AC cable to plug it into the wall with, so this goes between the wall and the power brick. I'm guessing power brick. Or it might go directly into the projector, actually. Probably doesn't need a brick, or if it does, it's built in. But so anyways, this probably plugs directly into the projector. Then you have the remote. Now the remote looks nice. Now this I would expect. And when you're spending $2,700 on a projector, you're not going to want that cheap little plastic remote that looks like every other plastic remote that comes with a projector. Now the layout of the buttons are similar, yes, because any kind of a smart TV or projector doesn't require a lot of buttons. It's consolidated down to just a few features because you don't need much. Because a lot of your control is going to be coming from your voice. Now you have your power button, you have your Google Assistant button, so this is where you're going to press that and say, hey Google, do this. And you have your directional pad here with an OK button in the center. It looks like you have a menu button, a back button, and an O, which I'm going to guess might be your input list to switch between inputs. And then you have your volume up and volume down. And then you have your battery compartment on the back that takes 2 AAA batteries. But the overall design of the remote in itself is nice. You have a 2 color tone kind of design here with 2 grays. You have a darker gray here and more of a almost a bluish gray, just slightly, but it's just a lighter gray running around the remote. And it looks good, it feels good in the hands. Your microphone's here at the top. It looks good. You can only do so much with the remote, especially these days since the remote doesn't require much and you don't need LCD displays or anything like that, because this is all about preserving the lifespan of the remote, not having to burn through batteries or anything. And that's it so far that I can visually see. There's a little hole underneath where this was located, and maybe that in the future they might plan on or be planning on including batteries. In this case, it looks like they don't, but at least there's a hole here, so they at some point contemplated the idea of putting batteries in here, or maybe it's coming soon. Now we're going to take the projector out. There's definitely some weight to this beast. And this is what the projector looks like. This is the back side of it here. This is the front side of it. And then your sides, just so you have this mesh grill design on both sides here. But I mean, this is what it would look like to the user sitting in their seating position. The laser is coming from a lens right down below here, which is shooting upwards. Again, it's kind of, just think of it coming out up at an angle like this at the screen. So back to the wall and onto the screen and up. And everything comes from there. That is your lens, your laser lens. And then all your inputs are on the back, and I was right, this does connect directly to the projector. It's a very clean design. If you consider any other brand that has delivered an ultra short throw 4K laser projector, this is kind of what it looks like, give or take. You know, the shape changes a little bit, but in the end, it generally looks something similar to this. So what they got going for is just, some companies go with rounded or egg-like designs. This one's more of a square, rectangular design. Everything's squared edges. Coming in through here, everything's fine-tuned here in terms of its style and design. You have this multi-lined layer right here on both sides here and right here to add a little bit to the style of everything with. And you have your power button here. Going across the front here should be your speakers. That's front firing, shooting at the user who's in their seated position. As for the rear ports, you have 3 HDMI connections. You have HDMI 1, 2, and 3. As I said, only one of these are probably going to have ARC, and I was right, it is HDMI 3, which has the ARC return. So if you do have this connected to a receiver, you're going to want to have that, or a sound bar, you're going to want that connected to the HDMI 3 connection here, so that audio can go backwards towards the receiver. And then you have a USB connection. That USB connection can be for multiple different things, but most commonly you can have a thumb drive in there with some music or a video or photo content, or you can do possibly an accessory like a keyboard so that you can type if you choose to, if you don't want to use your voice. And that prevents you from having to, go around the screen with a remote control hitting one letter at a time. And then you have 2 3.5 millimeter connections here. You have your audio input, which is your analog 3.5 millimeter, just basic stereo connection, kind of like a headphone jack. And then you have a similar 3.5 millimeter connection right next to it called AV input. Now this is going to be your typical RCA connection, but that requires an adapter. It doesn't come with that adapter because very few people ever make use of that anymore. It's not common. So it's also not common to find that adapter included with TVs and projectors, but it is quite common for them going with this method or approach of using a 3.5 millimeter adapter connection, or connection that needs an adapter, because it keeps the footprint small on the back. An RCA connection or other similar component style connections going across the back are going to take up a lot of space. In this case, it just takes a single headphone type style jack. And then the adapter does the rest. Next to that, you have an optical or SPDIF connection for 5.1 sound coming out of a just optical cable. A lot of people don't use optical that much anymore, but the option is at least there in case you do. It is still common with certain devices like soundbars and some of the older video game systems that were just starting to get into the multi-channel sound. And then you have a gigabit Ethernet connection that goes in the back here. You just slide Ethernet in here so you can connect this to your network so you have access to Google and everything that comes with Android TV. And that's if you choose not to go with Wi-Fi. That's it. If everything else is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and you can screencast it. Technically outside of plugging this into a wall, you could be done. If you just want to use the speakers across the front. Of course, it's not going to sound the best compared to a full-out surround system or a really nice sound bar, but it's going to give you sound. So really, just if you plug this in the wall and you do decide to go with Wi-Fi, everything's there. You're done. You just turn it on, you have all your apps and everything in one place, no inputs needed. But if you do want to game with it or anything else, at least you have your HDMI connections across the back. Or you run everything to a receiver for better sound and run the HDMI out of that into the HDMI 3 of this for that ARC return, so that you can still use this for your general entertainment with all your favorite streaming apps. So that is the WEMAX Nova ultra short throw 4K laser projector here. It looks nice. It's got a lot of weight to it, so there's a lot of stuff going on inside of this. It's very simple and user-friendly in terms of accessories. You just have a plug and you have a remote. That's it. Just plug it in. Everything else is how you integrate it with your system. And the instructions seem like, if I grab the right thing here, the instructions seem like they're all inclusive. There's quite a few pages in here. Specifically, you have 23 pages of information, everything from diagrams to troubleshooting, specifications, everything's in here. And it should walk just about any style of user through using this and getting it set up. So what we're really interested in is, what does it look like? Now, this is an expensive projector, $2,700. You're going to be paying for this. But it has a lot of neat features on paper. You have 4K, you have laser, you have ultra short throw, and you have Android TV. You have pretty much everything except for Netflix, unless you buy a $20 Fire Stick, or $40, $50, depending on which version of Fire Stick you buy. And of course, in the future, they may update this, because obviously the feature's there, the option's there, so it must just be a licensing issue. They're probably limited at the moment. And you may or may not see that built in the future. We can't say because we don't know the answer to that one. So it may never have native Netflix directly supported inside, but it's something to roll around because you never know. So you have a fancy price, you have a fancy feature list. Does it look as good as it sounds? Let's go find out. So we set this up in one of our demo theaters here, and we're just hitting it with one of our screens that pop down from the ceiling. This, I believe, has messed up our keystone just slightly since the screen isn't perfectly flat as it's simply hanging. It does pretty good for short throw and normal throw, long throw projectors that are coming from clear across the room. But with the ultra short throw here in this sense, some of the corners are a little bit wonky. So it could be because of just the wavy kind of result of the screen not being flat. But that being said, we have set this up. We have associated it to an Android account, and we have gone through the firmware update that was available to us, and we have paired the Bluetooth remote to the projector, which you do have to do from the very beginning, which only takes a few seconds. That being said, everything led us to the screen. It's rebooted. Now it's saying, hey, your 4-movie laser TV is provided by Android TV. It looks like now, I don't know if WEMAX is directly a subsidiary of Xiaomi, but that is definitely what popped up on the screen, on one of the screens. So either that it's something internally is provided by Xiaomi, or maybe just WEMAX is a subsidiary of such. But we'll go ahead and continue here, get apps from Google Play, yada, yada, yada. This is just telling you how to talk to Google Assistant since you have Google TV. You can cast your TV with your mobile devices. And by the way, the sound coming from the speaker bar, or just the speakers along the front, actually sounds pretty good. So it's a pretty decent kind of mid-level sound bar. Of course, if you want anything better, you definitely want to connect this to a receiver. As you can see, I kind of messed up the keystone quite a bit on this, so the image is a little wonky. We need to go back and fix that. That's on us, but everything is right here. You have Android built in. We're gonna go to YouTube real quick. You can see here how I kind of messed up the keystone there. And it's very likely based on, you can see some little, I don't know if this translates in the video, but towards the bottom coming from the angles, there's some gray marks there. That's actually just the shadow of the screen not being perfectly straight. You just see some of the wave in the material. Now, we didn't take up the whole projection screen. We're just simply pointing it at the projection screen. We're doing this on purpose because in order to fill out the whole projection screen, we'd have to pretty much take apart the entire entertainment section or center of the demo room here, take the shelves out and everything and set this closer to the ground. But since we don't have that configuration in here and we do not have the time, unfortunately, to completely reconfigure the room, we just stuck it on top of the AVR that's sitting there and shot it up at the screen to get as big of a picture we can. We slid it all the way forward to the front of the AVR, so at least you get an idea. Right now, give or take, the image is probably somewhere around, I'd say, 100 inches maybe, based on the size of the screen that's projected against. Now, the colors in this projector are absolutely fantastic. I mean, these look great. They're definitely bright. It's just a lot of color tone here and the colors are accurate. We have not calibrated anything outside of my poor attempt to keystone this against this screen. The only reason why we chose this screen is because it's the biggest one on site between any of our spaces here in the building, and that gives us the most footprint to be able to project this against. Also, it looks better than simply projecting it against the wall, since all the walls here in the building are textured, so that kind of gives you a wonky image, and we try to avoid that. So we chose this specific screen for that reason. So let's go ahead and find something to play here. I think breathtaking colors of nature in 4K would be a good option to pick. Now, we're gonna bring up the volume a little bit. As you can see, we get a lot of volume coming from this projector. It's really loud. That sounds nice. You're hearing it. I am mic'd personally. There's no mics in the room outside of my personal microphone, and you're picking all that up from that microphone that's on my chest. So there's definitely a decent amount of range coming from these speakers. So I'd say definitely mid-level soundbar. When I say mid-level, I'd say that's more of a consumer average for a higher end, mid to high end, because they do get better than that, but soundbars typically reach like 500 plus when you start to sound a little bit better. But for what it is, built in, this is absolutely perfect if you need a small footprint and don't need a lot of sound if you're more worried about the image than you are the sound. But this picture is fantastic. The color is fantastic. Everything looks absolutely great. Now, the attention to detail, the edges and everything, and text and everything else is fantastic. Again, that's thanks to the fact that it is a laser projector. We're gonna turn that down since we don't really have music rights to whatever's playing anyway, so we don't want to have any issues with YouTube here. But as mentioned, text and everything else is, thanks to having a laser projector, all the edges and everything can be a little bit more fine, just more detailed, allowing the image to pop out a lot better. That mixed with a really good contrast ratio, you do get typically deeper blacks with a laser projector, and you can see that with this. Those blacks are really deep. For the most part, they look fantastic, and it really shows some of the benefits that you get with laser. So far, the only complaints that we have are my poor attempt to keystone the image. Obviously, you're gonna wanna take your time and sit down with this and really detail your keystone job, because you're probably gonna sit this and forget. This isn't a mobile projector. This is something you're going to set up and you're gonna leave it there. And so you're gonna want it to look fantastic for your projection screen. Also, our screen is not, again, keep in mind, we wouldn't recommend a drop-down screen like this, probably with an ultra short throw projector, because as you can see, the waviness is in the image caused by the inconsistency of the screen not being flat definitely has an effect on everything. So if you have a static or just a plain permanent built projection screen that's installed against the wall, that's probably going to be your best bet in terms of matching it up with this projector, and use an ambient light rejecting screen in order to get this level of quality, both with the lights off and lights on. Of course, with lights on, there's gonna be a little bit of loss in terms of brightness and clarity, just like any other projector, but when you team this up with an ambient light rejecting screen, that loss is significantly less. But again, this picture is really fantastic. This looks good. It absolutely, I love this, and there's really nothing to complain about, again, outside of my keystone job. But let's go ahead and we'll look up a random trailer real quick to see what it'll look like in a movie-like atmosphere, or just in terms of colors and detail that you'd see on the screen when watching a theatrical source versus just a YouTube video. So that being said, this looks great. Everything looks fantastic. Colors, there's no motion trail or anything like that. We could see ourselves getting lost in many movies while using this projector. At $2,700, it does get dangerously close to some really recognizable brands that are out there. Well, we won't mention names, but I'm sure you can come up with a few yourself. So $2,700 is definitely is kind of a dangerous spot to be in. So maybe, just maybe, it's hard to justify. It is justifiable in terms of features. It looks fantastic. I mean, this looks great, but however, it comes down to names you've heard of and names you haven't. If you see two projectors and one has a name that it comes from a brand you are very familiar with, and you see something like WEMAX, and if you've never heard of that before, you might be more persuaded to go with the brand that you trust. Now, thankfully, we have noticed that this projector does go on sale from time to time, so that's something to keep an eye out on. We're going to have links in the description with some of this information. But overall, when it comes to watching movies and playing games, this looks fantastic. You will definitely enjoy the quality of this image as we do. We're going to have a lot more time to spend with this projector. We're obviously going to keystone it in better before we actually go into detail with our story later on at plcnetwork.net. But we're definitely going to have some fun with this to see how it lives up to some of the tests that we throw at it, and then we'll let you know in the review what we find. But definitely, it looks good. This is just some video footage from Mass Effect. Andromeda, which is a fantastic game, although it does have some mixed reviews out there. Most of us here have played this game and spent an endless amount of hours with it, and absolutely adore this game because it is so much fun. It has such a deep storyline to it, just like all of the Mass Effect games. And the only thing that might go against using, for you at least, using this as a projector for video games is the fact that a lot of projectors still have a latency that's different from a TV, and although ultra short throw projectors have typically a much lower latency, which is more beneficial. TVs typically have an even lower latency. So if you're into competitive gaming, online gaming, Call of Duty or anything like that, you might want to stick with TVs. But for general gameplay, this is just fine. It should be fine. The latency seems to be very little with the few moments we've spent with it so far, and in that it's simply just using the general use of the remote that comes with the projector in terms of pressing a button and something happening. Now obviously when you're playing a game online, just controlling something from the menu is one thing. It's fast, it's responsive, there's very low latency. However, in a game, when you're playing competitive, every millisecond counts. So projection isn't always the best option for you. That being said, if you don't, again, play competitively, this should work perfectly fine for you and just deliver an amazing image. I mean, look at this. This will look amazing playing any video game, and I just hope that this translates to camera as much as it does visually standing here in person. Now, there's also something to point out. That the bottom of the projector on both sides, on the front side, there are dials that are used to control the feet, to adjust the feet, to lift one corner up or down to help dial in your image width, or at least bring the image up and down a little bit. Then you go in and keystone it from there. But that's something that was left out a little bit earlier. And also the right side, right next to the adjustment dial, there's an additional USB port. So you have two USB 2.0 ports, again, for either media information coming off of an external drive or using any kind of accessories like a keyboard. So there you have it. This is the WEMAX Nova Ultra Short Throw 4K Laser Projector. $2,700, available online. We'll have some links in the description to make it easy to find. We'll also have a link to a full review online once we've really had enough time to play with this. So all that information will be available at plcnetwork.net, as well as additional links in the description where you can find this projector for purchase. So all that information will be available in the description. Now, if you liked what you've seen here, don't forget to subscribe below and follow us. We have plenty of videos to come. And of course, use the comment section as well in case you want to discuss this amongst each other or with us. Maybe you have some questions, or you just have some personal user feedback you'd like to share based on your own experience with this model if you have one at home. So use that comment section to share. And as always, we thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time. If you want to stay on top of all the latest and greatest, and or at least the gadgets we cover, remember to subscribe right here. Subscription button. Click it. You're going to want to. There's lots of videos, interviews, previews, all sorts of stuff. Button. Click it.